Today, I will walk you through the process steps for securing SBA's prior consent to the use of a credit facility that involves the pledge of 7A loans as collateral. The SBA regulations associated with the pledge of 7A loans to a credit provider are found in Part 120.434 of Chapter 13 of the Code of Federal Regulations, or the CFR. Current lender guidance for SBA participants appears in SOP 5010-6, beginning on page 61 under the title Secured Credit Facilities. Obtaining SBA's prior written consent is best achieved by submitting loan documents well ahead of the funding need. It is also necessary to state that under the regulations, SBA reserves the right in its sole discretion to withhold its consent if existing facilities are not approved, documents are incomplete, or are inconsistent with SBA policy. This guide will put lenders on the right path forward. The need for prior SBA consent is best understood by recognizing that SBA's contingent liability rests on each loan made with an SBA guarantee. SBA's review of credit financing documents centers on ensuring that it has unencumbered access to the pledged loan collateral if it ever needs to exercise its universal right to purchase the guarantee interest. The review looks for provisions that could impede SBA's right to the original note if a guaranteed purchase of a loan were to take place. Finally, SBA views financing like this as a leverage exercise of owner capital and conducts its review to evaluate the program risk of a lender default and its impact on the loans made to the underlying small business borrowers. The provisions in a credit agreement that are expressly prohibited by SBA include the following: cross default, or the issuance of a default under this facility due to a lender default in another form of an agreement; cross collateral, which involves the pledge of 7A loans in other secured credit agreements; the restricted use of proceeds, that is, borrower funds may only be used to make 7A loans or cover the cost of obtaining this credit. There's a prohibition on collateral possession. No other party other than SBA's fiscal transfer agent may possess the SBA or the original SBA note being pledged as collateral. And no assignment of creditor's interest or credit syndication is permissible in this facility. Only one credit provider should be permitted in this transaction. So, what are the sequence steps to complete this process? Well, first, secure a term sheet from the credit provider that summarizes the negotiated terms and conditions for receiving funding. Next, pull down the form of an SBA multi-party agreement from the SBA website under the For Partners tab within the 7A section and specifically within the Secondary Market subsection. A link has been provided to you here for your benefit. The document provides guardrails around the actions a creditor may take with regards to loan collateral in the event of an SBA lender default. Next, negotiate terms of the credit agreement and send along all transaction documents to SBA prior to execution for the agency's consent. When requested later by SBA, provide executed signature pages from both the creditor, lender, and any other intermediary, along with transaction opinions of counsel from both parties. Finally, upon receipt of SBA's consent letter and closing of the transaction, forward a fully executed set of transaction documents to SBA. Our review of the transaction documents includes verification of the lender's good standing with SBA and its compliance with SBA regulations, a review of both SBA permitted and prohibited provisions by our program office, and the delivery of the transaction documents and multi-party agreement to the FTA, who acts as a signer for that multi-party agreement. Internally, SBA will seek consensus approval from its credit risk management and general counsel units. Upon successful clearance of all transaction documents, SBA will contact the SBA lender to secure signatures on that multi-party agreement from the creditor, the SBA lender, and any other intermediary that's a party to this agreement. The lender will then return the signature pages and requested legal opinions to SBA. SBA's consent letter will follow and be accompanied by executed signature pages from SBA and the fiscal transfer agent for purposes of the loan closing documents. Once the transaction itself closes and the transaction documents are fully executed, SBA requires the SBA lender to forward a completed set to SBA for its records. To make this exercise as pain-free as possible, SBA lenders are encouraged to A, read the loan agreement. Other than the multi-party, it is the governing document for this transaction. Look for and negotiate removal of the prohibited provisions in the credit agreement. This will affect the turnaround time for securing SBA's consent. Establish control of the transaction documents themselves. This ensures that the terms are only what have been discussed and negotiated with the credit provider. Build in a review time of roughly 30 to 45 days for SBA approval. Send on final executed documents and the opinions upon closing, and then understand that from this point on, changes that are to take place on these credit facilities will require SBA's prior consent, maturity extensions notwithstanding. There you have it. When properly managed, seeking SBA assistance, seeking credit assistance to make SBA loans can ratchet up a lender's ability to provide capital to qualified small business borrowers. And this can bring a smile to everyone's face. We hope this brief tutorial builds awareness and helps in understanding the process steps for securing SBA's prior consent for funding from secured credit providers. We'll see you next time.